Earlier, there was a question in the chat room about Earth nature versus universal nature.
What was the question? You mean what is the difference between?
I think that is.
Well, Earth obviously is a reference to a terrestrial. Terrestrius is the name for the planet. She's had many names. Saros, Terrestrius, you name it again, Shan. But Earth nature, if we're talking now about earthbound or earthbound, then you're talking about terrestrius and the ability to stay on a planet that is physical. If we're talking about astral or heavenly or universal, we're talking about nothing bound to a planet, under a sun or out of a sun. We're talking about a free soul. And in fact, that's what astrology was actually based on. And I know now astrologers don't like me to see that. I had a book out called The Pamphlet of 12 Challenges to Astrology. We don't even understand astrology here. And we definitely don't understand it. The natal astrology is taught in the Western world. This is all off base. But nevertheless, it simply means that a free soul is free to go to the stars. They're not bound to any planet. They go to a planet for life experience or death experience, for experience of consciousness, and then they go on to become free souls. We should not be bound to any planet. We should be free to the soul to travel back to the universal creator, but because of our inquisitiveness and these messy dracons and what they've done, we sometimes forget that. We're coming back to that now. This is why you see so many changes happening on our planet, and maybe later on in the show we can get into some of that too, because our Earth is going through many changes now.
Right. Now, what is the difference between, because I've heard you speak about this before as well, what is the difference between man, mankind, and human?
Man is descended from God. Human is animal man, not Hugh, H-U-E, as I know many of the brothers and sisters love to say, it's the Hugh we got. That's not the Hugh they're talking about. They're talking about Hubris, the animal god, one of those serpents that began to create everything he could by genetically mixing what he found here with everything else from any other planet he could find, a hubris, but they call it human. Mankind would be a synthetic person. That could be an android, a clone, and in fact the seventh clone is a blank. And you have many people that are cloned now. We don't understand that, but these movies that are coming out are beginning to reveal everything, especially these comedies and stuff for children. They're really telling you like it is. But those are different species. Man descends from God. Human is a cross with the DNA from every kind of animal you can think of. They're still doing that at Dulce and Archelaca Mesa and at Plum Island. They're still experimenting with these kind of daggone things. But again, there's a whole different thing. One is a species descended from the creator, potential. One is man-made, or some people say a kind of man, and the other is actually a clone or duplicate.
Okay. All right. Now, in reference, I'm going to go back to the Woman lecture briefly. In reference to that lecture in particular, if women ruled and were more populated on the earth than men, what happened, in your opinion, to change it, and why are women in the state they are in now?
Well, women are in the state they're in now because of religion, mainly. And most women flock to trying to find a creator instead of going within to the creator within them, trying to find a man or some religion to teach them to find a creator. Well, the creator is within them. They are creatrixes. But unfortunately, they did this. That was what they called, that's the church there. That's where you got to get into these. Let me just tell you, guys don't like this, but I try to tell the truth no matter where it lies, okay?
You can be comfortable to speak your mind because this is a show that is geared toward women and us getting back into our ancient knowledge. And, yes, we do have men that listen, but it's men who understand what we're trying to get here and the information we're trying to get. So feel free to completely speak your mind and don't hold anything back. Seriously.
As long as it's pro-women, huh?
Well, it doesn't matter as long as it's truth, truth.
Believe me, it doesn't matter who it is. I'm going to speak my mind. No woman or man is going to stop me from doing that. Not as long as I have a mind and a brain. No, I was being kind of facetious with that one again. How can I get back with this one again? I kind of lost my train of thought on this one. Repeat your question to me because I want to make sure I answer it specifically, and that was what my mind is rambling through right now.
If during your woman lecture, you mentioned there was a point where women ruled and the male population was low.
Yeah, I got it.
That was the okay.
Yeah, I got it now. That's the church. The church wanted. There were more. Women were living, men were dying men were very feeble and weak, and they got this whole thing that they took a rib from Adam's rib and gave it to him from Adam's side, gave it to him for a bride, all this stuff. That is a male masculine church that wanted to have the women to come there because they knew that the women bore the babies, and if they could get enough women to subserve it and stuff, then the church would grow. It's just about that simple. And in fact, at one time, most of the women were in the church, most of the men were after the women, and this is how they got the men into the church. They've always done that. And consequently, they had to make this whole thing about men ruled. At one time, of course, there were no men on the planet. As I say, the original people had no sex at all. This is churchdom. This is the kind of thing that they need to captivate and hold consciousnesses astray from what they should be. That's about the best I can say without going very, very deep into it. They had to make this a patriarchal rather than a matriarchal society in order to subjugate and rule women. At one time, there were more women than men because the men could not survive, and the women were.
Okay. All right. Now, previously, I've had a sister on by the name of Nubia Wardford. She is a black anthropologist, and she is going to Sudan later this month, to start excavations in Merowe. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when you look at some of the temples in Merowe and Nubia and in that area versus some of the temples that are in Kemet or Egypt, as some may call it, there's a difference in how those temples were designed and whom the temples were dedicated to. For example, Dendera, you had a big, that temple, everywhere you look, you can clearly see that temple was dedicated toward a matrifocal or matriarchal society and was dedicated toward the women within that society. Can you touch on the differences between that particular area versus the upper Egypt and things of that nature?
Well, first of all, let me say that Nubia Wardford, who taught at the museum in Detroit, brought me into Detroit about 5 times. I know her well. Okay.
Great.
And we spoke over there at the Kwaba Center, which they've now closed up, unfortunately, and we've had long discussions. So I have been felt very close to Nubia. So I simply say it again, I hope she is making it. I know it's been her desire for the longest. Now, as far as the temples there on the Nile, each temple on the Nile represents a chakra. And I took on a big Caucasian anthropologist at one time on Coast to Coast. Didn't know who he was, but I know he was telling a lie. At least to me it was not the truth. And we kind of had that out. Everything there in that area represents the risen soul or the captured soul. It represents the chakras. It represents the pyramid by which the chakras could be released and people could travel by going into the pyramid. It was never used as a tomb. All of these simply so personifications of gods or goddesses, the beings electric or positive, it means magnetic or electric. They put their names and made it species specific, being male and female. There were none. It simply meant they had a lot of magnetism or they had a lot of electricity. Certain temples formed at certain parts of our galaxy, so these various constellations could emit certain energies. The whole point was to be well balanced and have each of the chakras develop so that the higher chakras not contained in the body could be attained, and you could astral project, you could astral travel,
right.
You could travel through the Merkaba, raising the Ka and the Ba of Allah. And in fact, if you understand that the last people to do that were the Martians, who were really Olmecs, and of course if you go to that area of Cairo and you pronounce it correctly, because C's all mean Greek, they had no K's, they didn't have Greeks before that time. Kahir means Mars, and it was a Martian settlement, and the pyramid is the same thing they have on Mars. And it's also the face on Mars is of a black woman with dreads, and they already know this too. So much is known, it's just so much is not revealed, and the more they keep us dumb and people dumb, the more they can start wars, have us fight amongst ourselves instead of trying to attain freedom and consciousness on this planet.
Right. Now, this is another thing that you mentioned in your woman lecture. What is, and this is going to be a touchy subject for some people, but I'm going to ask it because we need to know. What is indigenous homosexuality?
Well, you're putting me through the third tonight, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth degree, aren't you? My God. Okay, indigenous homosexuality can be more or less if you get your imbalance in the mitochondria. We are not, well, within the cell is, of course, your dinucleic acid, and your ribonucleic acid. You have the cell, which has a membrane around it. That's what they call a memory brain. The cell remembers what it's supposed to be as long as the cell's nucleus and governor is cool. When you have imbalance in the dinucleic acid or the ribonucleic acid, you have a potential imbalance in what that cell is, and you have, therefore, a potential imbalance in what that cell replicating itself as it should. So you more or less can say that the indigenous homosexuality is when in the first trimester, or in many cases the first trimester, in some cases even at conception, when there's an imbalance within the male and female impartations, if you would, to make the zygote. One gets overdone, you get too electrical, you get too much of an RNA, you get too much of this and that, and when it develops in the brain, it is not specifically, you might have a sex organ developing on a consciousness that does not want to express itself as a sexual person, especially a male that maybe wants to be a female, or a female that wants to be a male. Also, the kind of drugs that we're exposed to, the kind of things that are imparted into the blood at the time when this cell is developing. All original zygotes are female. I repeat that. All original zygotes are female. They must change hormonally to become a male. And in many cases, even though they may change harmonically, they may not change again in the consciousness of what they would call in the brain cells. So although you have one thing produced on the physical body, you have another thing in the mind. And in many cases, here we go again, it is because of past life regressions or past lives expressions or past life inhibitions by which, in case they did not fulfill what they wanted to, and then came for another. As I say, that gets into a whole lot of things in incarnation, in mating.
And karmic, right.
Oh, but these are things you just cannot talk about in 1 hour and get to any kind of conclusion that's relatively intelligent.
See, Dr. Blair, we're going to have to bring you to Virginia.
Well, I know somebody said they were going to bring me somewhere there in Atlanta, and they never did it. And we were supposed to talk down there. They said, but none of the women wanted to hear me. So I guess if the women don't want to hear me, I'll continue to talk to the men. But anyway, I heard that. Let me stop
I'm in Virginia. I'm not in Atlanta.
Heard that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, there's a question in the chat room about a movie with women in the moon.
What about the movie with women in the moon? Yes, I have such a movie. Yes, and I do show it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess they want you to expound on that or talk about that or something?
No, they got to come out to some of my lectures and stuff for that one. There is a movie that supposedly has a black woman on the moon, 1.5 billion years old, in a spaceship. Now, that's all I'm going to say about it. We do have the movie. It's controversial. They can view it and steal for themselves. That's part of a lecture that I give.
Oh, wow. All right. Now, I have a question about the moon, and this, everybody's probably going to think I'm crazy, but, you know, it is what it is. When we see the dark side of the moon, what is that? You
don't see the dark side of the moon unless you're in a spacecraft or unless you're getting reports from somebody who's able to travel to the dark side of the moon. The moon is not a real body. The moon is an artificial body that was driven in place here. And it does not revolve as a satellite. It stays in orbit showing only one side because it doesn't rotate. This is how you know it's a false thing. Most moons are false things. Phobos and Deimos of Mars are false things. One goes in grade, one goes in retrograde. So it never spins, so therefore it's always showing one face because it's in orbit but not in rotation. That lets you know something was wrong there. And as far as it having come from the Earth, it's foolishness because they have stated, if you can believe anything they state, that the moon rock dates to 5.5 billion years, Earth rock dates to 4.5.6 million years, and therefore it could not have come from the Earth. The ancients would tell when it was a time when you had no moon, the chaos that happened once the moon was driven in and these reptiles came in, and it was the Olmecs that stood against them. That's another long story.
Was there also a time, because I know you just mentioned that the ancients tell of a time when we had no moon, was there also a time when the Earth was not tilted on the axis it was tilted in and didn't produce the seasons we see now?
Seasons are, oh boy. You see, every time you ask a question here, you're getting me into deeper metaphysics. I don't believe the Earth has an orbit. I don't believe it's in orbit. Now you say, okay, now he finally blew it. No. I get into truth. I seek for truth. We supposedly are in a vortex, and multiple vortexes are vortexia. and that the sun has a vortex field, the earth has a vortex field, the moon doesn't have it because it's in the earth vortex, and the earth is in the sun's vortex. We spin like a feather in a drain spout. We spin around because not of our own volition. This is why these people who want electricity and don't want to use magnetic power and understand gravity. This is why those creatures who can defy gravity understand the real source. We have energy all around us. We are in a vortex. We are not the vortex. This is why electricity is stupid, magnetism is stupid. Everything we've got around it is free energy. That's what's called orgone energy. That's why they kill the people that produce machines that can use that energy. Creator did not make a planet devoid of energy. So all of these things about rotation and all this does not deal with vortex or vertexia. That's another whole story.
Okay, there's a question in the chat room about when is your next lecture, and what is the name of the lecture that you reference the Women on the Moon so they can buy it from you if you offer it on DVD or what have you?
Most of the lectures I do now, I do not tape unless I'm speaking for a group someplace here. We cover such subjects here at the center that I really don't want it out. I want those who are wise enough, smart enough, or spend money enough, or think whatever they want to come here and not be afraid of having their words now going out to the public. I had that done to me before. I say a lot of things in private at our own institution I don't say in public. I don't teach everything I know, and for various reasons. I've been poisoned and all, too. So there's a lot of things. So I would simply say my next lecture here in Chicago at the center is this coming Saturday, and I'm calling it now looking at what do they call it again? It's looking at all these amazing things that are happening everywhere and trying to fathom them. This planet is going crazy. It's not the planet crazy, though. It's the people on it. So I'm looking at all the amazing things that are happening all around, from the blue ray that came when your president was receiving the Nobel Peace Prize to the quakes and stuff and sea serpents that are being seen. We're going to cover all of these things leading up to my January 7th lecture again, which is the predictions for 2010. So we're going to cover all of that and always have a movie to back it up. And believe me, the movie is very exciting.
All right, all right. Well, we are going to go to the phone lines because we have a lot of people on the lines who, Dr. Blair, do you need to take a brief break before we go to the phone lines? Or
I'd like to briefly get just a little bit of water. It wouldn't take me but about a couple of minutes. And I also would like to give my landline and website, if I may.
I put the website in the chat room, but we can definitely make sure it's on the radio. Yeah, I put it in the chat room a few times.
Well, let me go get a drink of...
You want to go ahead and give your website information out, and then we can go on break?
Okay. It's www.the. Don't go any Blair Beard. Somebody in the chat room before. I have a lot of friends out here telling people where to go for me. I know what my website is. It's themetacenter.com. www.themetacenter.com. Forget the Blair Bears. That's somebody who wants you to buy from them. That's my son's thing. It's got a whole different ballgame. Now, the website, the landline, it's 708-422-6685. 708-422-6685. And up there we have all kind of holistic products. We've got brain boosters. We've got mineral enhancers. We've got sex enhancers, magnetic penis ring. We've got, you name it up there, we've got it. It's quite a sight. But I will say this, for those who are interested in the monatomic gold, that will no longer be available after the 31st of this month because of the government sanctions against the company that make it. It's just hard for them to make it like they did, and rather than to put out things that are not good, they're going to quit. So that's the only thing that you're going to get. You better hurry up and get it now. Other than that, that's about it. And, sister, if I may, I want to get me some water, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes if you'll have me.
All right, sure thing. All right, we're going to go ahead and go on break. Everybody, hang tight in the chat room and hold on the line, and Dr. Blair will be right back.